Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. Now, for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that we have decided to talk about tonight. Hank Robb, my good friend, Dr. Hank Robb, and I are going to talk about spirituality. And he's going to do most of the talking because I dance around it through my lifetime and I have a few vague ideas, but I think Hank has a few more. Hank, thanks for coming on again.
You're very welcome. Nice to be here.
You betcha. How are you feeling right now?
Pretty well, although for us it's the end of the day. I don't know when it'll be broadcast, but I'm feeling like a person who's at the end of the day. The subject is interesting, so I'm looking forward to having a chance to talk with you about it.
And it was your idea to talk about it?
Indeed.
Oh, wow. It'll be interesting to see how this turns out because both of us are clinical psychologists and humanist counselors, and we have some other common things. I'm not sure I'm as good as he is at hugging. I know two people in my life who are the best huggers in the world. Hank Robb is by far the one. He doesn't just hug you. You feel like you're held. And I don't ask him all the time because it becomes kind of repetitious, you know. And I surprise myself occasionally when I say, Hank, I need a hug. And he comes over and he just envelops me. It's a gift. Thank you so much.
Well, and it is a gift that someone long ago gave me because perhaps like you, I don't know, I grew up where men shake hands. That's what we do. No more touching than that.
Yeah.
And he helped me to find how joyful it is to hold someone close. So I thank him, and I pass it on to the rest of the world now.
He taught you good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was going to say it, and it turns out to be, as long as we're mentioning it, a fellow named Dr. Gail Fuller, who has been serving on the Humanist Board, the American Humanist Association, for many years, and I had the very good fortune to meet him when I was in college. He was a professor of mine, and probably the person at whose feet the fault of my having become a psychologist can be laid.
So is there something special about humanists where they're more likely to have people who know how to hug than other people or religious people?
Well, I don't know. I'll say one thing for humanists: you better get your hugs now because this is the time, this is the place. Where else?
I'm going to be yelled at by email.
Uh-oh.
By the way, I was yelled at in an email the other day because I had a show on talking about fluoridation, and I had a dentist and a guy who's an activist, and it was all one-sided, and I hadn't done my homework too pretty well, so it sounded like just a biased view of the issue of fluoridation of our drinking water. And this guy was upset because I didn't have some opposing views on. So I emailed him back, I hope you're watching this, and I apologize to him for not digging a little deeper. But when you get somebody who knows more about fluoridation and who has the other side of the issue, then you can call me and we'll put him on too, all right. So let's continue on with our show, okay?
Indeed.
All right. So as you know, the first half of the show is the who are you, kind of a personal view of who Hank Robb is and where he's coming from when he talks about spirituality. So let's go on with that. You were on some years ago, so the viewers, I'm sure there's some new viewers now, so they don't know all the details of your sordid childhood. And you're going to poke me.
And sordid indeed.
So Hank, you know, I always have a surprise question, and I'd like to start with this one. If I would ask your best friend, who is Hank Robb? What would your best friend say? Hank is?
A pretty good fisherman.
I'm
because
leaving.
my best friend is my longtime fishing buddy, excepting possibly my wife, who I'm lucky enough to have a good friend who I'm married to. And what would she say? Hard-headed. That's probably what she would say.
I know,
That
Hank.
probably is correct.
I've been with you in a lot of gatherings and discussion groups and whatever, and I love it. Yeah. Hard-headed and loving. So, when and where were you born?
Dallas, Texas, in a suburb actually of Dallas, Texas, a kind of high-end part of town. So I was had a privileged kind of youth, and grew up in that suburb, and then went off to college in Missouri. But I was the sort of kid who also got off to summer camp. So beginning when I was 9, I left Dallas and went to camp in Colorado, and discovered there was an alternative to sweltering all summer, and there weren't any, I'm sure, an article that you're probably familiar with too, chiggers. There are no chiggers in Colorado. It's a really nasty beast that tries to eat you up, and kind of a little mite. And I got there, and it was wonderfully cool, and I said, oh, I've just been born in the wrong place. I've been misplaced. So then I continued to go there for a number of summers, and then in the northern Midwestern part of the country, a couple of summers in Minnesota and or Wisconsin and Minnesota, and then went off to college in Missouri.
And when were you born? What year was that?
1945.
45, okay. Anything significant about your racial, national, or cultural heritage? I included them all there, and I'm sure they all apply to you.
Well, not really. I'm
You're plain
from
old
the
American
Celtic.
white bread?
Well, I'm from a Celtic background. My let's see, my great-grandfather on my dad's side came from Scotland, and he married a Buchanan, which is why my name is officially Harold Buchanan Robb III, because the Buchanans are way stepped up from where the Robbs were in the order of things. And my mother's mother was a novice nun when she came here from Ireland, and eventually found her way to a hospital in Dallas, Texas, and was serving cookies at the graduation of some nurses at that hospital, and following that event went into the Mother Superior the next day and announced that she would like to be one of the dancing nuns, because apparently at this nursing graduation they had a dance, and that looked pretty good to her. So fortunately, becoming a nun didn't work out for her. And here I am.
And you mentioned a little about your education and PhD. And how long have you been a psychologist?
Well, let's see, I graduated in 1978. So after my undergraduate school in Missouri, I spent 4 years in the Navy, and about 6 months or so were in around the San Diego area. Then I spent a year back in the Washington, D.C. area, and then the rest of my tour was in Long Beach, California, and due to oddities of military funding, I never actually went anywhere, so I was a hospital corpsman that whole time, working in psychiatric or psychological facilities. Then I went back to graduate school at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and I did my internship in the Bay Area, and then went back to Lincoln because I hadn't finished my dissertation, managed to get that done, and then I worked for 8 years in a small state college in northern Idaho, in Lewiston, Idaho, called Lewis Clark State College, and then came to Portland in 1986.
So why did you decide to become a psychologist?
Well, I was a history major on the way to law school, and I just said, right in the middle of my junior year, I just had enough of this. And so I undoubtedly, I think like many people who go to study psychology, at least part of it is, how can I stop doing, or what can I do about this life of mine? It's just, oh my gosh. Maybe if I read enough, I can straighten some of this stuff out.
Yeah.
But it turns out that reading is not enough. You actually have to practice different things. Not read about practicing, but actually do it.
Yeah.
So, of course, as many people find, that's more work.
Yes. Sometimes I'll talk about the years I've spent in therapy as a client, as a patient, in group therapy and family therapy and a whole bunch of stuff. And if I have to go back for a tune-up now and again, I will do that. But periodically I go and I learn some more. And I don't have a practice right now because my private practice, which is very small in an office in my home, is down to no clients at the moment. But occasionally a client will present something and a different approach or look at the way I look at it, and I learn something, so I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful. Wonderful. So where are we going to go now? We're talking about you have partner, a boyfriend, girlfriend, a husband, wife, or what?
Yes, the woman that I'm married to, we actually met in high school, and we married in 1968, and we have 2 daughters, one who is just about, maybe I shouldn't say.
Too late.
Who's just about to have a birthday, and who lives with her husband in the San Francisco Bay Area. Actually, she lives in San Francisco, and our youngest daughter finished college and is working in an emergency room looking at what do I want to do in medicine. I'm not too sure, but I'm trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. So it's great pleasure to have her at home and near at hand. And there's a great line, I think, in the third of the Indiana Jones series, mm-hmm. where there's an argument between the Indiana Jones character and his father in an air balloon. And the father says, okay, you've been mad about what a bad father I was forever. Let's hear what your complaints are. And so Indiana starts in, and finally Sean Connery, the character he's playing, says, okay, have you had it now? So let me tell you why I was a great father. And he lists all these things off. And then he says, the trouble is you left just when you got interesting. And so often at the end of high school, when our children can finally carry their end of the couch and their end of the conversation, they go off somewhere and you don't see them much anymore. But now that she's back, we have an opportunity to interact with her regularly, and it's great.
You betcha. You betcha. Would you care to say something about your political persuasion, or your left, right, center? Where are you on the political continuum?
Well, I'm on the end of the constantly disappointed.
We're not talking about the election coming in November.
Well, no, I mean that because you know, I wish that they'd run Kucinich. You know, yay! I'm looking for somebody like that. And so even when and nobody who isn't a Republican or Democrat has won in a very long time.
Yes.
And so even when the Democrats win, it's usually not as a determined program as I would like to see.
Yes. Yes. So memberships in political, social, or civic organizations, any memberships you'd like to disclose to the viewers memberships that you hold?
Well, I'm a member of the Humanists of Greater Portland, and I will say, interestingly, because when I was in my 20s, I would never have imagined that in my 60s, or long before that, because I have been a member of the Rotary Club of Lake Oswego for a long time, mm-hmm. 20 years at least, and I would never have imagined myself to have become a Rotarian, and yet here I am with a group of people who work very hard to make a difference in their local community and internationally. and they have regularly funded the women's shelter in Clackamas County for a long time, which I'm very proud that they're involved with that. And
of course.
very nearly, as an international organization, have been able to end polio in the world. There's only a couple of places left that it has not yet been eradicated, and that's been an enormous amount of effort and money that the Rotary International has put forward.
Yes, yes. Okay.
And I would say another thing. There's another organization that I've been involved with for a very long time called SMART Recovery. SMART stands for Self-Management Recovery Training, and it is a four-point program for people who are interested in abstaining from whatever addictive behavior it is. It doesn't tell people that they better abstain, but if they are interested or they're thinking about possibly abstaining, it's an organization that helps people succeed at that.
Will you say that again so my viewers can hear it? I don't have a panel up, but then they can contact you and learn some more about your SMART program.
Well, they can go right to SMART Recovery. So it's smartrecovery.org, www.smartrecovery.org. And if they like any of the things I'm saying here, click the resources button and you can find things that I have written in their newsletter, News and Views, because I've had a column there for about the last 10 years.
Psychology, what's your basic model that you learned as a psychologist? Are you Freudian or Ellis or what?
Well, I was a very odd character because when I went back to graduate school, there were only two things that I was really interested in. One was, how can you know anything? And then the second thing was, how can you know what's good? Because if you're involved in a practical art like psychology, clinical psychology, or although my training was in counseling, you have to be able to tell the difference between good and bad. Well, this, of course, makes me very interested in a philosophical enterprise, and if you want to make psychologists crazy, then you mention philosophy, it gets them all upset. And most of my graduate student colleagues thought that I was actually in the learning program because I was pretty serious about, well, what we really know about psychological principles of behavior change. So I was the kind of person who'd be talking about Skinner and people like that, and everybody throw their hands up and get very upset. That also is related to my long ago conviction that talk about spaceless, weightless, timeless stuff is just not very helpful. The first, about the time I left graduate school, two books came out. One by a guy named Michael Mahoney and another one by a guy named Donald Meichenbaum. And one of those was titled Cognition and Behavior Modification, and the other was titled Cognitive Behavior Modification, and both of them referenced Albert Ellis. So I looked into Al Ellis and found that he was a person who saw right away that some sort of philosophic orientation was going to be necessary if you were going to be doing effective work in psychological change. And since he seemed to grasp that in a way that virtually nobody else did, I was very attracted to him. And then in the last number of years, I've been attracted to something called the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science. And within that organization lives people who practice something called acceptance and commitment therapy, and who are interested in a particular theory of language called relational frame theory, which is in part how I came to be looking at spirituality as a word, spiritual, and an activity that is fully within the realm of psychology, in terms of psychology as the study of human behavior.
Mm-hmm. What's your philosophic orientation?
Well, these days I would tend to say I'm a functional contextualist, which is not very informative to people who don't have much information. But namely, what this means is we are all operating in some context. And the question is, how does what we're doing work in the context in which we're operating? So you might say my truth criterion is utterly and totally pragmatic, which fits very much with the graduate work that I did, which was greatly influenced by original signer of the Humanist Manifesto, namely John Dewey.
Mm-hmm. And I have more questions along that line, but we're going to get stuck as two psychologists than too far out here. Let's continue on with regular stuff.
More fun than anybody wants to have.
Yeah. Persons from the past, one or more, are alive today that you particularly look up to or looked up to or admired. Any names come to mind?
Well, I certainly admired Al Ellis
Mm-hmm.
when he was alive. He died just recently. Well, one of the people who have been at the forefront, and I would say the sort of founder who has moved in this direction of acceptance and commitment therapy and relational frame theory, is a fellow named Steve Hayes. He's now the foundation professor at the University of Nevada, Reno. But certainly the work that he has put forward has been very influential to me, and I think somebody who has done admirably well, having just recently completed his 600th publication.
Oh my gosh.
So in the vernacular of my rational emotive behavior therapy folks, he's the guy who gets his work done.
I would think so, yeah. Anybody else come to mind that you admire or look up to? Or perhaps that's enough.
Not having thought about it before I got here.
That's the idea. Catch you
I'm not sure who I would say.
All right, let's move on then.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see the mainstream media, left, right, or center?
Right. Way right.
What's most important nowadays for us? What's most important?
Well, I think that we live in two things. We live in a society that runs on money. We don't barter things. We have a money system. You know, I don't go to the gas station and say, well, pump me some gas and you can come see me for a certain period of time, or I got two buckets of oats in the back and you can have those. And so I think the first thing that's really important, because everything else stands on it, is the monetary system. Mm. And in the United States, since the repeal of Glass-Steagall, we have been utterly imperiled.
Yeah.
And then in the United States, this huge change that we have had over the last 30 years, beginning with the Reagan administration, where more and more and more money is funneled to fewer and fewer and fewer people, so that we now have this enormous discrepancy between the uber wealthy, yes, and many other people in the population. And then I would say worldwide, the overpopulation of the planet and global warming, which is, you know, as people can just see, the ice caps are melting and life is going to be very different.
What can we do about those three things?
Well, the things here in the United States would be relatively simple. Reinstate Glass-Steagall, put an end to this, mixing up the regular banking system with the gambling system. And then in terms of the distribution of income, change the tax system so that instead of all the money going to the top, it's more equitably arranged, because recently there's been a lot of talk about people who don't pay income taxes. Well, the reason they don't pay income taxes is because they have no money. So it would be nice if more people had more money, more people could pay income tax.
There is such a thing as social justice if we'll just think a little bit. So please, the third thing.
The overpopulation is, if the United States would simply, again, going back to the Reagan era, reverse Reagan's policy of just not encouraging family planning in a very vigorous way, something could be done about that. Global warming is a much tougher nut because it really massively requires changes for those of us who live in this world.
Yeah.
Not going to have to, not much change for people who are got 2 buckets of oats in the back, and I'll trade you my 2 buckets of oats for something else. Those people are not going to have much change, but we're going to have dramatic change. Or we're going to have dramatic change that will include flooding the subways in New York City.
Do you envision some radical change in our behavior on this planet such that we will continue to survive?
Oh, I think humanity will survive, whether or not the current cultural stance. I don't know how that'll go. There's a wonderful story by John Steinbeck called A Short History of Mankind.
Okay.
And it ends with, human beings have been fighting all their way out of the caves and the trees, and they're still fighting. And this was written in the 1950s. They're still fighting in the United Nations. But so far, we haven't chosen extinction. And maybe we won't.
And with that, I think it's time to take a break. Mr. Director, can we take a break here? Because Hank's got me all confused. Yeah, the mic's going to be off. All right, we're back, and thank you for staying tuned. And for you people who missed the opening of the show, the Conversations with Dr. Don that you're watching is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about. And my good friend, Dr. Hank Robb, and I are going to talk about spirituality. This is going to be fun. So let's start off again. I got a cheat sheet here of questions that I'll start our conversation with. I want to ask you, what do you think of the Wikipedia definition of spirituality? You sprung this on me, and I've looked at so much stuff on spirituality, I thought, I'll go to the root, right? Can I read it to you?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's as good a place to start as any.
The following outline is provided as an overview of and topical guide to spirituality. Spirituality can refer to an ultimate or an alleged immaterial reality, an inner path enabling a person to discover the essence of his or her being, or the deepest values and meanings by which people live. Spiritual practices, including meditation, prayer, and contemplation, are intended to develop an individual's inner life. Spiritual experience includes that of connectedness with a larger reality, yielding a more comprehensive self with other individuals or the human community, with nature or the cosmos, or with the divine realm. Now, before the show started, we read this, and you had a comment like, they didn't miss anything, did they?
Well, I think the great thing about definitions like that is that they always have, well, it could be this, and or it could be that, and or it could be this, and or it could be that, and or it could be this other. Well, by the time you get all the and ors in there, what did they leave out? I don't know what it could not be. So I do think it is worthwhile to talk about, well, what are we talking about? And I come to this very much from my life in psychology. As undoubtedly you know, but as many people who might be watching this show, there was a very famous Frenchman named René Descartes. And he was famous because he put forward in his written in Latin treatise, which every educated person would have been writing in. Nobody was making their way in their own local language. They were still using Latin. He coined the phrase, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. And then he went on to tell us about the thinking thing, the thing that is preeminent, the thing that is first, and that is the spaceless, weightless, timeless stuff wherein which the mind exists. And he made, I don't mean that he intentionally or surreptitiously did this, but in a practical way, he put an end to the war between science and religion of his day, since the religious community, namely the Roman Catholic community, had come up with some pretty exquisite means of dealing with people that they didn't agree with. So that, he said, this spaceless, weightless, timeless stuff, the stuff that is preeminent, the stuff from which everything else flows, that'll be your business, religious folks. And us people who are interested in something called science, we want to know how the blood system works and how the heart works and how these things work, we'll take the secondary stuff, the stuff that is involved in a world that does take up space, occurs in time, and has weight. Well, life went on pretty well until this Wilhelm Wundt guy, this psychologist in Germany, in Leipzig, broke the deal and said, we're going to use the methods of science to study the mind. And it wasn't too long after that until a guy named John Watson said, there isn't any spaceless, weightless, timeless stuff. Minds are simply another kind of human behavior. We have human behavior like this, and we have other human behavior, including the kind that we call mental. So, if I ask you to make an image of your kitchen at home, unless you're one of those people who's just got zero imagery ability, you probably can do it. And if I ask you to have this thought, we are sitting in Dr. Don's program, you can probably do both of those, as can all the people who are watching this program. And I'll bet you almost none of them now believe they have made contact with some spaceless, weightless, timeless stuff. Now, what I'm interested in is a different aspect, not one's body, which no problem with that, and not one's mind, not thinking or imaging, but rather an aspect of our being that can do this, namely, notice. Now, if I ask you to notice the glasses on the end of your nose or the way the seat is supporting your body, I have no doubt that you can do it. If you were to have a thought that was random, or if I directed you to have one, namely there's a glass on the table, if you made yourself think that thought, you could notice that you were thinking it. And you can do a second thing, namely you can notice that you're noticing. You can notice the glasses on your face, on your nose, and you can notice that you're noticing. Now, the aspect of you that does that behavior is not body in the normal sense. It's not this. It's not any kind of bodily sensation. And it's not a thought. It's not blah, blah, blah. It's not an image. It's not a picture. It's the aspect of you that notices and notices that you're noticing. And if you take yourself to that place, which is kind of a funny way of talking, but even though it's a funny way of talking, most people can actually do it. If you take yourself to that place and kind of notice what it's like there, one aspect is it's a lot like the eye of a hurricane. Thoughts and feelings and images can be spinning around, and the winds can be pretty powerful. And yet, at this place, there's a sense of stability. And many people have had that experience of being very, very, very frightened. And yet, somehow in the center of that is calm and a sense of stability. Well, this is another aspect of one's spiritual dimension. Not only can it notice and notice that it notices, it has this quality of being like the eye of a hurricane. And further, if you kind of check out what's it like there, there's a kind of sense, a kind of isness or beingness or aliveness there. There's a kind of a buzz of being, you might say, but no real sense of goodness or badness. Now, there's a little goodness in the sense that most people like that buzz. But aside from this is like bzzz, there's really no good or bad to it. It just is. And from this place, no matter what you're feeling, no matter what you're thinking, you can pick what you do. So you can think, I will keep my left arm down. I will keep my left arm down. I will keep my left arm down. And you can raise your left arm. And many of us have had the experience of no matter how much we are threatened from without, you do this and you're going to get it, we can do it anyway. Now, we may have to suffer some consequences that we really don't like. And maybe rather than suffer those consequences, we don't do it. But I'm talking about the ability to do it. So, to follow the Beatles, there's nothing you can do that can't be done from this place. And lastly, whatever it is you're going to do, from this place you can pick that thing. No matter what your mind is telling you, no matter what your body is telling you, you can pick that thing. And so these aspects of this aspect of our being, which isn't our mind, which isn't our body, well, what words have we got in our culture for something that's part of us that isn't our mind or isn't our body? Well, how about spirit? has nothing to do with anything otherworldly or supernatural. It simply has to do with an aspect of our being with which we are not particularly familiar.
Interesting. For me, and not denying or quarreling with what you just said, spirituality is a quality that is not definable. It's an experiencing. I think oftentimes we as humans make the mistake of talking about our body and our minds as though I'm able to use my body and my mind and my brain to define things that are not definable. The only way I can define them or talk about them is to talk about a feeling that occurs inside of me as a result of my being and all those other things that you talked about. I can cite probably a couple of instances in my life where I experienced something, a being that is pure, and to experience my total being untrammeled and unrestricted without any of those influences is bottom line what it's all about. When I am with another human being, or when I'm alone in a beautiful meadow and everything is just right for me, and I have this feeling, I come down to feeling of this unrestricted being, it's just marvelous. It doesn't last too long, because when I'm experiencing it, I might think, oh, I'm experiencing what Eric Berne called intimacy, and then it's gone.
Well,
because I'm engaging the brain again.
That is the thing. As soon as you notice that you're experiencing, it's gone away.
So that's spiritual. It's an individual can look at their own process, and if they're free enough or healthy enough, they can have those occasional moments of spirituality. That's my way of looking at spirituality. I could go on with some more detail about that, which I won't do just now, but it's just an incredible feeling. Do you remember the TA theory of Eric Berne, transactional analysis, I'm okay, you're okay? Mm-hmm. In addition to my Freudian training, transactional analysis was my basic overview of human relations in psychology. And he talked about time structuring. And intimacy is the ultimate time structure, where you and I in each other's presence, and nothing else is occupying our thinking, and we're experiencing each other. Now, Eric Berne, one more thing, postulated that if a human being experiences 8 minutes of pure intimacy in a lifetime, he's had a marvelous life. It's a continuum.
Joseph Campbell used to say, eternity is not a long time. Eternity is when the dimension of time drops away. And so we sit, and at some point we say, where has the time gone? And in those moments, there was no time. There was only the moment in which we were experiencing.
And in intimacy, that's the primary ingredient to let you know that you're experiencing, or you have experienced intimacy. You have no idea when you started experiencing intimacy and when you stop. It's timeless. And I'm embarrassed at this moment with what you said, because I've had a few other people I respect who talked about Joseph Campbell, and I've really got to go back and avail myself of his teachings.
Yeah, he was someone who had a really great influence on me in the sense that when I first heard him on the radio, I happened to be driving back and forth somewhere at the same time during the week. And the first time that this program was on, in those days there was no left-wing radio, so it was NPR or nothing for me. And they had this wacko on, this Joseph Campbell guy. I dismissed him. I was, you know, he's an idiot. And then the next week, at the same time, well, they got him on again. Only this time he didn't seem quite so ridiculous. And then the third week, I thought, this guy's really got something. So I did spend a lot of time with his work. And I think that one of the things that Campbell made quite clear is that if you concretize a metaphor, if you take a metaphor literally, then it obscures what the metaphor is trying to open. So when I was in high school, I was forced to learn the beginning of a poem called The Highwayman. And the poem begins, "The road was a ribbon of moonlight." Well, if on reading that you go get some scissors so you can go cut some ribbons to put in people's hair or tie packages, you've missed it. You didn't get it.
Okay.
And as Campbell makes clear, all of these spiritual words are meant to point to actual dimensions of human experience, but to do so metaphorically. And as soon as they're treated literally, they're completely misunderstood. And so we have all this misunderstanding about spiritual stuff, the same kind of thing you're talking about in this Wikipedia definition, where, oh, it's some kind of other world. Well, it's not your body, and it's not your mind, and it's the world that's right here, this other dimension of your of you, that if I ask you, for example, to notice your glasses on your face or the watch on your arm, and I say to you, okay, now I want you to do a second thing. I want you to notice that you're noticing. And if you do those two things, or if you even just do the first one, to notice, and then I say to you, okay, who's doing that? Either you will think to yourself or say out loud, either me or I am, and it's perfectly clear that no blah, 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 that's not what's doing it. That word points at the thing that's doing it. And if you mix up the words with the thing they point to, you're lost. For example, if you think the thought, I am sitting in a chair, if you think it, if I think it, well, for both of us right now, that thought is a true thought. And yet it is not the experience of our hips and back and elbow and arm being supported by the chair. If I were to mix up blah, blah, blah with the actual experience, well, I would just be lost. And so often we are lost because we take the words to be the thing itself.
And we get in the way of being aware of feelings. For me, bottom line is, how do I feel? And I characterize a feeling that I call spiritual in the order of mad, sad, scared, and glad, that whole description of various words that we assign to the signals that my being is presenting to me to have me become aware of the success at the moment of what I'm doing, thinking, and so on. So it helps for me to talk about spiritual and spirituality in terms of feeling.
Well, I think the one place that I would agree with you about is if you go looking for it, and usually this is a young person's job, they don't get very good instruction in it, but that's the place to start. But no matter where you are in life, you can start. If you'll just listen, you know, you try different things, try different activities, and just listen for something that's kind of an echo inside of you. Now, I didn't know this until way late in my life. I thought that when piano tuners showed up with their big band of tuning forks, that what they did was they hit the fork and then they made the note sound like the fork. That's not what happens. What happens is you twist the piano wire until the tuning fork that's for that note goes off by itself. You hit the note, and if it's the right note...
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. The tuning fork resonates. That's what they say. It resonates to the note. Now, people are like that. If they find the right thing, the thing that makes something go buzz inside them,
sure.
Then if they pursue that, it'll be a little bit like one instrument playing softly. And if you pursue it, sometimes it'll fade away because it might be an illusion. But then if it's the thing that really is resonating in you, you get another instrument and another instrument and another instrument. Pretty soon, maybe a few years, you get the whole orchestra, yeah, playing a variety of tunes.
In perfect harmony.
For you. Now, that, because I can't find any good words for it, I just call it the way cool. Because all you can really say about it is just way cool, man.
Time is running out for us. We've got about 5 more minutes or so. We were going to talk about these 2 things, Hank.
Yes, my 2 formula, the formula for human liberation and the formula for serenity in action. And I'll quickly run through the 2 of them.
Please.
Most of us, the people who are, you and I, and the people who are observing this are, yeah, because you grew up in New Orleans, in the city, not out in the country.
Yeah.
In the city, when you get to high school, they give you homework that you don't want to do. And I would say the whole point of high school is to get homework that you don't want to do. And then in the service of things like either actually learning something or simply making better grades, which anybody who's been around education for a while knows those 2 things are not the same. But you make yourself do the unpleasant homework and you refrain from doing things that are a lot more pleasant. Well, if you turn that into a little formula, you get, by making myself do something unpleasant and refraining from doing something pleasant. Why now? Just to annoy yourself? No. In the service of something I make more important, then I never have to be a slave to circumstance, whether that circumstance is inside my skin or outside my skin. If I have that formula in hand, I am always free to act. Now, if you grow up on the farm, you learn this when you're 5, because the chickens got to be fed and the cows got to be milked and stuff's got to get going or it's going to be a bad outcome. But most of us city dwellers, we don't get it till we get to high school, which is why high school is really important, because there's the time that you really get homework that you don't want to do. And now you're up against that mastering of your thoughts and feelings. I don't have to think I want to do my homework. I don't have to feel that I want to do my homework. I can hate doing my homework, and I can do it. And then there's another trick in there. I can learn to do it willingly, not fighting my way through it, giving myself to it. Because when you give yourself to something that you're doing anyway, it goes way better than fighting it.
Then you need to be in control of your motivations.
And that, I think,
to make those kinds of decisions
is in the service of something I make more important. Well, what are you going to make more important? Well, where's the place from which you can pick? The place you can pick is that spiritual aspect of your being. Because it doesn't matter what you're thinking. It doesn't matter what you're feeling. From that place, you can pick anything. There's nothing you can do that can't be done.
Okay, they're yelling at me. We got about 2 more minutes. You got another bit
And
more?
the last one, the formula for serenity in action. And the one reason that I like to talk about this, as opposed to the formula that people most know, which is the one from Reinhold Niebuhr, let me accept the things I cannot change and the wisdom know the difference, etc.
Yeah.
Well, my point is you better accept everything. Because even things that you can change, I could change my watch from this hand to this hand. But if I refuse to accept that it's right on my wrist right now, I'll never get it changed. Nope, it's not there. Nope, it's not there. I don't accept that it's there. How will I ever get it changed? So the first thing we better do is accept the world, to give our permission instead of withholding it for the world as it is.
Yeah.
Willingness, wisdom to see what would be good to change, it's not good to change everything. Willingness to act and willingness to follow through. Getting the ball rolling is not the same thing as keeping it rolling, and gratitude for the opportunity to live my life as best I can. The Buddhists say all life is sorrowful. That's the first noble truth. And why? Because we don't always get what we want. Well, the Rolling Stones said we don't always get what we want, and if the Buddhists and the Rolling Stones can agree on something, that's pretty good cross-validation.
I think so. It's been a delight.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad I had a chance to be here.
Thanks again.
You bet.
Hank. Yeah.
And I'll give you a real hug when we stop, because it's a little awkward to reach across the chairs here.
I'm looking forward to it. And the final 20 seconds or so for our viewers, what would you say to our viewers? I thought you would leave them with.
Look for that spiritual aspect of your being, the part of you that notices and notices that it notices. And when you find it, you will find a place that has a stable center, and you will experience that buzz of being. And then you will be in a place to pick what you choose to make important in life. Not what anybody else says, but what you choose. And there's nothing you can pick that can't be picked.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you. They're going to yell at me in the control room any minute now. Thanks for watching, you viewers out there. I'm so glad. I hope you enjoyed Hank as much as I did. He's a delight, isn't he? And our public service announcements, I got to give you a few of those. There's my broadcast schedule for you viewers in the Portland metro area. And then you can get my shows on the web by going to my website to watch my shows and click on favorite links. And the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, because our civil liberties are in jeopardy now, even with the Obama administration. So go to the ACLU and see what they're about. Protect our civil liberties. And to get my shows broadcast regularly by your local public access station and other parts of the country where you're watching this, go to my www.pegmedia.org. And we got to end corporate personhood, because with corporations recognized as persons, democracy is going down the tubes. So go to www.pegmedia.org and learn how to end corporate personhood. Thanks for watching this episode of Conversations with Dr. Don. And now my favorite thought for the day, my favorite one is KFC. Remember KFC? Not that KFC, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you and you and you and you. Thanks again for watching. Good night.